All right, welcome everyone to the Supervisor training for HMIP 2020. Thank you all once again for agreeing to supervise our interns. We really appreciate the effort and time that you're prepared to give to training the next generation of leaders. So thank you very much. I'll get started now with our slideshow. I'm going to share the screen so you can see it. Sometimes I forget whether I'm sharing or not sharing, so don't hesitate to remind me that you either can or can't see something at the moment. All right, here we go. So hopefully on your screen now you have the PowerPoint slides for the supervisor and coordinator orientation today. Now, I invite you to please interrupt me at any time to ask a question, because sometimes if you've got that question, and I'm sure others will, as I mentioned, I am recording this training so that other supervisors who couldn't make the training session will be able to watch this in their own time. If you have a question, I'm sure that others will have the same question. It's great that we have some brand new people here today, so I will try to take it step by step and hopefully include everything that's needed for you to be able to feel very confident about your role as a supervisor. So I'll get started. Please interrupt, just turn your microphone on and speak. That's no problem if you have a question. Okay, so just a brief introduction to the ACHSM. So we are the peak professional body for health managers in Australasia. And we bring our health leaders together so that they can network and share ideas and learn from each other. And the mission of our college is to recognise and develop and support effective health leadership and management. Our vision, better leadership and healthier communities. So that's where the HMIP comes in training managers and potential executive for that role. So the HMIP, the Health Management Internship Program, we're pleased to recognise our 45th year this year. So we're planning some events to commemorate, or some things to commemorate this great achievement. It's an extraordinary thing for any program, and particularly in health, to run for 45 years. And it means that we have interns, hundreds of graduates, right throughout the entire New South Wales health system and beyond. And it brings in a huge network of contacts for us to draw on. Now, the interns, they are exposed to different workplace and educational opportunities. So they're employed, as you'd be aware, for either 1 year or 2 years. And during that 1 or 2 years, they rotate through business to various aspects so that they can learn a broad spectrum about how your business runs, what are the key elements, key factors, and this is invaluable to anyone who becomes a manager or an executive at a later stage. So, and then to date, all graduates of this program have been employed either by the intern program that train them, or by, if they haven't had a suitable position available at that time, then they've been snapped up by other health employers. So it's an outstanding employment record, which we're very proud of. So the structure of the HMIP is that it's made up of 3 components. So the first is the workplace component, and that's for 1 or 2 years, as I mentioned, employed in either health, aged care, consultancy, in the public, corporate, private or community organisations. They all accept our interns. And there's a wide variety of organisations who are accepting them at the moment. Now, our academic component then is that every intern, with a couple of exceptions, but almost every intern does undertake the Master of Health Service Management, and they have to complete that within 2 years. So it's a very hefty workload that they're under. They must do 2 units per trimester to get through the 12 units required. And at the moment, that's with UNE. They all study online through part-time external study. Now, It's the third component of the program is the professional development and masterclass component. So this is made up of orientation, which we're running tomorrow. It's also then made up of 4 professional development days, and how they work is that the entire morning is taken up with a workshop of relevant activities for preparing them for management and leadership roles. And then in the afternoon, we usually have a 1-hour masterclass with an expert from the industry who comes in to train and show the interns about an element of the health industry that they may be unaware of. So they're always very valuable workshops, and they're often run by supervisors just like you. So if you'd be interested in doing a masterclass with our interns to teach them about what you do or about what your business does, then we'd be very interested in hearing from you. They also attend other ACHSM events, so speakers and webcasts. So as a professional association, we're constantly running professional development events, and the interns have access to these. So it's a great opportunity for them. They're also assigned a member. They participate in the ACHSM mentoring program. Their mentor is usually an associate fellow or a fellow of the college, but can be broader than that as well. They remain with that mentor for either 1 or 2 years, depending on how it's working for both of them. And they are an invaluable resource for anyone starting out their health career or transitioning from a clinical role into management role, which is what many of our interns are doing. So as you may be aware that our interns range from new graduates all the way through to people in their early 30s who've been managers of businesses themselves and are now looking to enter health management and utilising the internship for that transition phase. So they're very broad and the range of experience is extraordinary. The interns also gain access to our library as they're members of the ACHSM, and that gives them access to hundreds of previous webcasts and newsletters, etc., which highlight different elements of leadership that they need to be aware of. It's a huge resource and a very valuable one. They do receive peer support from the interns who've been in the program a bit longer and sometimes from former interns. And they also have an opportunity to sit on the New South Wales Branch Council. So it's a great opportunity for professional development. These are just a brief example, it's not all of them, of the organisations past and present who have accepted interns. I know they need a few changes in where I've put things, so please forgive anything that's not in the right place. Okay, now all interns and supervisors will be given access to the HMIP program manual, and I'll send that to you. I'll send a link to that to you. We store it on the ACHSM website, but I can't give you access to the page just yet. That's coming in 2020. So I will send you access to the link, and as you can see from the table of contents, it's your Bible. It's a guide to everything that you need throughout the program. If you're not sure or if you have a question, please check the manual to see if the information you're looking for is there. If not, I'm always available to answer your questions, and my contact details are in the manual. I'll send that out to you this afternoon, the link. Now, the HMIP is built, the foundation for our program and for all ACHSM programs is the ACHSM competency framework. So this was developed over many years and very broad international consultation. So it's known in the industry as the framework to rely on when you're looking at management and leadership competencies. So it's broken down then into the competencies the interns need to explore throughout their internship. Now, the competency assessment tool, we call it by its acronym, the CAT, and the CAT is all assessment takes place and is recorded via the CAT. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment while I open the CAT and then I can walk you through so you can see exactly what you'll be required to do, what your interns will be asking of you. Now, just one moment and I'll share this again. Get it back to scratch. And this one as well. Okay, now on your screen, you'll see an Excel document here. I've got two open. This one is the sample of the CAT. That's the one that I've filled in all the pages so you can have a look and see what's this supposed to look like when it's filled in properly. And the other is the master copy. This is the blank one that the interns will be downloading so that they can use this to set up their assessment for the program. So we'll start at the beginning. The table of contents is interactive, and if the interns add a new sheet, it will automatically go into the table of contents. So if we get started here, now the interns will be informed at their orientation tomorrow that this is, sorry, I'm referring mostly to the first year interns. So for those of you who'll be supervising second year interns, they're much more across all of this. They've already been using the CAT for a year. They can help you a lot with implementing this. Now I have updated it. It's a better model now. So I'll be asking the second year interns to add some of these sheets into their current CAT. So second years don't need to worry so much because it's all quite familiar. First years, it's new for the interns and it's new for you as well. So I'm very conscious of that. So I'm going to take you through each of the sheets to show you exactly how it all works. Now, the scoring sheet, this is each of the competencies broken down so that the interns can look at the domain, the leadership domain, the subdomain, the short title, and then the description of each of those competencies so they can see what it is that they're being asked, where they rate for that. Now, the rating system is over here. We go from NA, and we don't have a 0 because 0 doesn't work for the calculations. So we have NA if it's not applicable on this rotation. And it may be that your intern has 0 experience and they might put NA for 0 experience as well. That's fine. If they've had some exposure, they'll use novice. If they're learning, they're capable of showing, but they still need an eye on them. If they're demonstrating it independently and they've had some experience with it, some good experience, and then proficient, we wouldn't expect them to reach the stage of proficient in this, this placement. Now, the reason why we have it there is because this document is going to continue with the intern for their entire career. So it's not something that's just for the internship. This is a document that will stick with them and guide their professional growth and development for their entire career. So we would hope that they begin to achieve proficiency in many of these competencies as they gain more years of experience in health. So we're not expecting 4s. Now that said, we have some interns who have over 10 years experience in health and they are hitting the 4s. So I can't generalise about who's going to reach what, but those are your guides. If you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to call me. So the intern is going to complete this first session here, first submission here, before they meet with you for your initial meeting. So they should come to that meeting with this completed, and I'm asking them all to email it to you before that meeting. So you can have a look and see exactly where is the intern up to in each of these domains. Now, it looks like there's a lot, and there is a lot, but I don't want you to think you need to give great attention to every one of these competencies. You don't. You choose the ones that apply in your area and that are particularly relevant for your rotation, and those are the ones you focus on. Some of the others they'll be touching on incidentally, of course, but over the duration of the placement, there may be some competencies that they never touch, and that's okay. If the opportunity is not available in your workplace, then it's not available, and we accept that. Now you'll notice some of these already have NA filled in. Now I filled that in because in my view, it's unlikely that any intern is going to be, for example, balancing the competing health system priorities. That may not fall under the remit of an intern. It may not be within their remit to promote things. It depends on the role they're in. They probably won't get to create and control budgets. So I've taken out some of these obvious ones that are not appropriate to interns. If, however, you have an intern who's very experienced, then these may be quite appropriate to them, in which case they will simply put their numbers in for whatever they are self-assessing them. Now, we do not expect supervisors to go through this and rate the intern. It's the intern's job to rate themselves, and then we ask the supervisor to have a look at this and see if there are any anomalies. So, for example, if you notice that an intern has given themselves a 3 or a 4, you may want to question that, because those are fairly high levels of proficiency that they're claiming that they've achieved. Okay, any questions so far? All right, the CAT document, as you've probably noticed, has many, many, many sheets attached to it, worksheets. So that's why the table of contents becomes so important, because we don't want you clicking all the way through. At any time, you can click on the top of that document and it will return you to the table of contents, where you can then click on the next document that you're looking for. Now, it's in an order. So I'm going to just now flip over here to the sample of the CAT. This is the one that I've filled in. So you'll notice here, this score sheet is completed. It's got 3 rounds of scores in there. Now, I did take this from an intern's score sheet, and this particular intern had over 10 years experience and had been in a management role. So you'll notice that she's got a lot of high scores. We don't expect that from most of our interns, but she was an exception. So then what happens then once these scores are in is that we have collated all that information here on the performance development review. So the data that's been entered on the score sheet is summarised here and averaged, and then those averages are produced down here. So you can simply look down here at the 5 domains and see where your intern is getting most of their experience, where they're getting the least experience, and you may be able to take some of that into account when you're planning activities for the intern. Now, having said that, it is not crucial that you do that. What is crucial is that you meet your business needs. Okay, so we don't design the activities based on this. We design the activities, tasks and projects for the intern based on the business needs. And then these usually follow. Okay.
Hi, Dave. Jenny from EPA.
Hi, how are you, Jenny?
Good. Just got a quick question. Looking at that spreadsheet, there were some dates on the top for date of submission in the scoring sheet. Mm-hmm. Are those the particular dates, or that's just an example?
That one's an example. The interns will fill in the date when they did their scoring, and they'll fill it in several times throughout the year. So you'll always know which one they're talking about. But I'll train them tomorrow to make sure that they're always putting in the date for when they're doing it and when they need to do it.
Right. And how often do they need to do it?
I'm going to cover that a little bit later. So I will take you through the, I put it all on paper for you, so you've got a list of when these things need to be done. Okay?
Yep, great, thanks.
Right, thanks Jenny. Great question. Any other questions while we're here? Okay, so this just provides you with a snapshot of where they're up to. Now you'll notice here that there are 1s and there are 0s. If you change anything to a 1, it will be included down here. That's if it changes to a 1, that is. Sorry about that. There we go. Now, all of those have just been added here and are now being looked at here. When you get towards the end, as you can imagine, this is an incredibly busy graphic representation. So what I do is, if I'm looking at their progress in business, I turn everything else to 0. And when you do that, you're left with a much clearer picture because there's less being included in the graph. I also just look at the ones that have taken a drop. Now, obviously, they all drop back at the end because the next one says 0. But anything in here that I notice is going up, 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 and then suddenly has a drop, I'll probably have a closer look at that. Okay, so that's it. You'll understand it more when you have a chance to play with it. So if I then look here at the next sheet, this is their leave record. Now, this gives me an indication of how many days off they're having. It's important for me to know that when they submit it. The interns will be trained in completing that. Then we have their professional development log, and we're looking at how many hours of professional development they're doing throughout the program, and that's really important as well. As far as mentoring goes, can I ask you to leave that outside, please? Thank you. As far as their mentoring goes, this is a record of their mentoring meetings, and they are going to complete that so that I can keep an eye on how often they're meeting with their ACHSM mentor, and so can you. So that'll be complete. When you receive this log, you can have a look and just check that they are actually meeting their mentor. Now, as you'll note here, I've written that they should be contacting their mentor fortnightly or monthly, ideally. The absolute minimum acceptable is bi-monthly. So if they haven't achieved that, then we would both need to have a chat with them about that to find out why they're not making good use of their mentor, because they are an invaluable resource. Okay, the next sheet. Now, this is the rotation plan. I'm looking here at the sample. So I've done 2 samples for you of how a rotation plan could be done. Now, as the supervisor, you are the person who tells the intern what are the projects they're going to be working on for the duration of this placement. Now, you or your coordinator will have determined the placement's either for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, or on rare occasions, 9 months. Now, during that placement, if, for example, it was a 3-month placement, they might have 3 projects that they're going to work on. So we're asking them to tell us how long, when are they going to be doing them, and to go back to the scoring sheet and cut and paste the short title descriptor in here so I know which competencies and they know which competencies will be covered across this project. Then they write what activities they're going to be doing. The wording of this is slightly different now. It's basically a description of the activity and extra personal development activities that they're going to be doing along with this activity. So the interns will be trained in how to fill this in, but it will be up to you to give them the activity, the project, etc., that they'll be working on. Now, if you're not sure or you know, don't worry too much. It's okay. New supervisors get better as we go through. And so the first time it can be maybe too big or too small or whatever it may be. Now, one of our very experienced supervisors has told me that he always gives the intern a variety of projects to work on. So the first, he always gives them a big project. So he puts them into a large project team where they're going to see, you know, something, it might be construction or it might be a big project that is ongoing and might be going to take 2 or 3 years. So he likes them to have an experience of working on a big project. Then he gives them a smaller project that they are accountable for and must deliver from the start to the finish of that rotation. So it can be a small project. Sometimes it's reviewing policy. Sometimes it's looking at something that the person doesn't have time to review themselves, but they're going to ask their intern to undertake that review, or maybe implementing a new something. But it's going to take 3 months or 4 months or whatever that may be. So that's a good experience for them to have carriage of a small project, so that they have to figure out how to get through the hurdles that we all know exist in the system. And then as well as that, he involves them in something else that is good all-round development for an intern. And he also invites them to any meetings that he can get them into. So he insists that all his interns attend executive meetings so that they can see the level of planning, of thought that goes into the executive level meetings. Now, sometimes it's not appropriate. It's a confidential meeting and obviously they can't attend that, but they may attend for a portion of the meeting and then be asked to step out. But it is important that you as the supervisor are looking at the meetings that are taking place within the organisation and working out where you could have your intern attend. So if you could have a look at that, that would be great for the intern. Now, not only meetings, but there may be events, there may be professional development opportunities, all sorts of things happening within the organisation that are useful and valuable for the professional development of the intern. So that's the rotation plan. Now, this is due. The first one is always the hardest one to get done because there's a lot of introductions to be done and a lot of massaging to make sure that everything can be worked out. So we've asked the interns to submit within 4 weeks. So that gives you a lot of time to finalise the projects, finalise the meetings, finalise everything before the intern is expected to submit this first rotation. Notice it's called R1. Now, I've also, so this is a sample. This is a very succinct sample. So this particular intern and their supervisor have really just put in the bare bones, but at the same time, I can see what they're doing. I can see what they're going to be working on, how long they're going to be working on it, what are the competencies, and what else will the intern be doing while they're working on this project. So it's got all the information I need. However, some of our interns and some of our supervisors feel that this model is not satisfactory. So they have submitted a much more comprehensive plan for, in this case, it was, I think it was 6 months. So, no, actually it was a 4-month rotation. So as you can see here, they've put in everything. They've covered off the domains in the planning, put in details of which of the competencies, and here being very clear and detailed about what they're going to be working on here. Public interest disclosure management training, for example, risk management, and also tapping into the New South Wales health training databases as well. So there's links here. These are ACHSM resources. So this intern has their entire 4-month rotation mapped out here for them, and they only have to open that every day to take a look at what's next. What do they need to do? So that's another model that you might like to use, but you might look at that and think it's a nightmare. So well, I'm open to a model that works for you as long as I can tell what the intern's doing. Okay, any questions about the rotation plan? No? Great, okay. Then, so that's submitted by week 4. Now, then I don't hear from most of you, unless there's an issue, until the end of the rotation. Now, that's when the interns complete this. This is their development report. Now, I'll just flick back to the master one. Okay, I'm going to rewind just a little bit. So here on the master, you'll see that there's other logs that the intern needs to complete. So they need to do their leave. They also need to do their professional development log, as you saw in the sample. They also need to record their mentor meetings. And here is the first rotation. So you can see that the sheet's there. It's blank, except that I've put in a sample down here, just to remind you of the kinds of things that go in each column. Obviously, by the time you get down to here, you'll be deleting that, but it's a great example to have there. So we've just covered off rotation plan 1. Now, at the end of the rotation, don't worry about the timelines because I've got that all written down for you. At the end of the rotation, they are going to complete this development report. So they note what are their strengths, what are their areas that they need to further develop, in this domain. And they write a comment about the rotation, what they learned, how they found it. Some of the interns write really insightful, useful comments here. Some are more brief, and I don't feel necessarily take the time to indicate to me and for their future selves about what they learnt in that rotation. Then after they've filled this whole form in for the 5 domains, they bring it to you and you add a comment based on what they've written here or on your observations. So I have seen supervisors write, I disagree with my interns' comments above because I think they're far better than this and they've accomplished far more, and I was very impressed with their accomplishments in this domain. So any type of comment that gives me an insight into how the intern's performing is very valuable. Thank you. So I'll show you what that looks like when it's completed. This one was done by Mid-North Coast and I've got their permission to show you today. So these were comments about that very experienced intern I was telling you about. So as you can see, a senior clinician with a wealth of experience, and those are the comments that have been added in here for her. If you have a more junior, then you can, the comments may be less in-depth. Okay, back to the master. So they do that at the end of the rotation. Now I'm going to show you here, there's 2 copies of the master. This one is at the end and this one is in the middle. Now, by the time you receive this, the intern will have either deleted that mid-review, or they will have filled it out. And the reason why is because it depends on the length of the rotation. So if they're in a 6-month or a 9-month rotation, I can't go 6 or 9 months without a report on their progress. That's too long. So I need to receive something from them every 3 to 4 months. So I've put this mid-report in, and the interns will be trained that if they're on a 6-month rotation, they must complete the mid-report at 3 months, halfway through. If they're on a 3-month rotation, they don't need to because they've hardly done anything halfway through 3 months. And same with 4 months. So they will delete that one if they're on a short placement, and they will fill it in if they're on a long placement. So the one that everyone has to do that is compulsory is the end of the rotation development report. All right, moving on. Now, you will also be asked to score them on their professional attributes. So it's a simple scoring matter here, and then to write a comment, but it's a very brief comment. I do not want our supervisors writing loads and loads and loads. You don't have time. So a very brief comment, and some write them so brief, they are 1 word, but these comments are, really helpful to me so I can see how the intern is performing. That's due at the same time at the end of the rotation. Then we move on to the next rotation, and here's rotation plan 2. So the intern is going to meet with you for their 2nd rotation meeting, so you as new supervisor. They're going to complete all of this, so I have all this information at my fingertips. I know when it's starting, I know when it's going to finish, I know when the mid-review is coming or that it's not applicable, and I know that they're scheduled to meet with you at the end of the review, end of the rotation, to do their review together. Now, this is something that you'll be aware of. In the last 12 months, we've had many interns who were unable to submit their reports on time. And the reason is always because the supervisor simply doesn't have the time or space to fill in their report. So we've asked them to schedule this meeting with you up front 2 weeks before the end of the rotation. Now, that gives you 2 weeks if you need to move the meeting, which inevitably you may. But we do ask that all these reports are completed before the rotation finishes, so the intern can submit it immediately on completion. So they're going to start their next rotation on the Monday, so there's no time for looking backwards and for coming back to you to chase up reports. So we do recommend that you stick to that scheduled review date, because it only ends up you know, getting further and further back if that's not possible. And sometimes it's not, but, you know, where possible. Any questions about any of the sheets I've shown you so far? Okay, so just as you worked with the intern to do rotation 1, you're now going to tell them what activities and projects they're going to be working on in rotation 2. And they're going to fill in the rest of this and send it to you for your approval at the same time as they send it to me, or they might send you a draft beforehand. Now, as far as approval goes, you'll notice there's no signatures here. I can't stand all the printing and scanning and uploading and downloading to get signatures, so we're not doing that. You will be sent, so when they send this document to me and copy Alison, who works here as well, and Alison can wave to you now. She does all the admin for HMIP. When they send it to us, they're also going to CC you. Now, if I don't hear from you, then I'm presuming that you've approved it and that everything is in there. In there is what you've agreed with the intern. Now, I think that's a much more sensible and efficient system. So please do have a look and see what they've written. And then if I don't hear from you, I know that it's correct. So then they complete their rotation 2, and at the end, they meet with you to do their end of rotation 2 report. Complete the professional attributes again with a new supervisor, and then they're on to rotation 3. And so the sheet goes, it's just develops all the way up. I've only done to rotation 4, then the interns can add 5 and 6 if they're having that many rotations. So that's it. Now I'll just show you a sample of each of these documents. So this is the one that I've shown you about the development report. That's how they look. The professional attributes is filled in with some examples for you to delete. And then rotation 2, I haven't put in a sample of rotation 2 because you've got rotation 1 samples. So that's it for the CAT. So are there any questions before I stop sharing? No, great, okay. Now, the next document, actually I'll go back to my slides now. So as you've seen, oops, I need to share the slides, don't I? Sorry. All right, so as you've seen, the competency tool is the assessment tool for the entire placement. So they discuss their self-assessments with you rather than you doing all the work. You are asked to give them feedback, and if you think that they are not accurate in their assessment of themselves, then it would be great for you to either level them up or level them down in their expectations so that they are more on par of where you assess that their learning is at. Now, many of our supervisors ask me how you would know. What am I assessing them against? Okay, so the answer to that question is you're assessing them against, for example, a new employee with a similar background and experience to the intern with similar tasks and responsibilities. So all of you have been managers, you've all assessed employees before, staff members. So that's the level. So just have a look at their resume. Ask yourself where you would rank them. Are they fairly entry level? Are they moving along a bit, or are they really very experienced? So you're expecting, you know, a good level of performance given their level of experience, either in the industry or externally. Now it's a cumulative record, so everybody can look back through the record and see what they've already done and see how they're progressing and look at the comments. So it's very useful. It should be referred to by the intern for the rest of their career. It's not just for HMIP. And there's no signature required because the email system is going to be my evidence. Now, I'm actually not going to go through this one because I've got another document that has all this very clearly laid out. So I'll wait and we'll do it there. However, you'll have access to these slides. I'll make sure that you get a copy of these. So if this format works better for you, I'm happy for you to use it. But the one I've got is a cycle, so it tells you what's due at which part of each cycle. Now, let's have a look here at our supervisor responsibilities. These are on a separate handout, so you'll be able to print a one-page document with all of these on it so that you can review it off your notice board or wherever you'd like to keep it, just so you know that you've done what's here. I'm going to go quite quickly through these because you'll have the handout and it's fairly self-explanatory. So you're going to identify the activities for the intern. This is the most important element of your role for the rotation planning. Going to meet with them and sign off on the rotation plan. Now it says 2 weeks, don't worry, it'll say 4 weeks when you get the document. If you can do it in 2, that's better all round, but within 4 weeks. You're going to have a look at their CV, so you're clear about where they're up to in their training and development. You're going to have a look at their self-assessment and either agree with them. Now, mostly you'll look at them and say, I don't know, I haven't worked with you yet, so I don't know whether you're accurate or not. So it may not be appropriate to comment at the beginning, but if you notice that there's quite a few high ones there, you might want to be looking out for that through the placement. If you notice that there's an awful lot of NAs, it may be that they're underestimating the fact that they have crossed this competency in another role. So just so that you get an idea of whether they've assessed themselves very high, very low, or in the middle. You're going to, then at the end, you can look back and ask them to level themselves up or down according to your interpretation. You're going to provide a placement that's appropriate to their experience and their qualifications. And all of you will do that because you're experienced supervisors. Assess them as you would a new employee with similar experience and skill set in a similar role. Do their performance review, midway if it's a long placement, at the end if it's 3 or 4 months rotation. Discuss the outcome with your placement coordinator. That's Sean in the case of IPA. And Sue, of course, you'll want to be talking to Julie throughout, and others. You need to speak with other people who are involved in the placement so that you can let them know how the intern's tracking. Now, some organisations actually include other stakeholders when the intern submits their CAT. So it's up to you. They must send it to me, they must send it to Alison, and they must send it to you. But you may also stipulate that you want it to go to several other people who will be interested as well. That's fine. You have regular meetings with your intern, at least fortnightly. Now, these should be scheduled and happen at the same time where possible, just because it makes life easier for everybody. However, we understand it's not always possible, but you do need to meet with them. Facilitate their development. Training, supervision, professional development. See if you can get them on any internal courses that others are running at your organisation. Highlighting opportunities for them to attend meetings, etc. Provide them with alternative sources of information outside your own area of expertise. So introduce them around, send them off to meetings or seminars, etc. that are good for their all-round development. And meet with me at least once or twice a year. We can do, the first meeting will be face-to-face. The second one will either be face-to-face again or online. And provide them with feedback. Now, this is most important as the supervisor. You need to, of course, focus on the positive as you always would. But if there's unsatisfactory performance, it's really important that you tell me very early so we can work together to give the intern every opportunity to pick their performance up by the end of the rotation. Now, you should be honest and clear and constructive in feedback, as any supervisor always is. But sometimes the interns don't hear what you're saying. I've had conversations with supervisors where they've expressed a concern about an element of the intern's development. Usually they're doing brilliantly, and there's just this one thing that's not going as well as possible. For example, one intern was constantly saying to their supervisor that the tasks they will be given were admin tasks and that he didn't need to do admin tasks. That's not part of the placement. So she called me to say he feels that taking minutes at executive meetings is an admin task. And I was then able to help her to how to communicate in very straight terms with the intern that these were some of the most valuable experiences he was ever going to have, that other employees never got to sit in on exec meetings, and that it was very valuable for him to have to not only summarise, but then consolidate the information and express it in a succinct way. I can't think of the word I'm after now. It starts with S, up from summarising information, that you're not looking for a summary. You're looking for more comprehensive and succinct evaluation of the executive minutes. Now, that's an incredible skill for an intern to learn that will stand to them for the rest of their career. But if someone's relating to it as it's just admin, then that's not going to work. So that's an example of where the supervisor called me and we worked together to look at how she was going to really work with him to appreciate the value of what he was doing and how I was going to reinforce that. So I had a great chat with the intern. I didn't say your supervisor says. I never do that. I raised general areas. So when he said that he was doing the minutes, I raised that and said, how do you feel about that? And we got at it from there. So there's all sorts of things that you can add. Now, I'm very conscious of the time, so I'm going to try and speed things up a little bit. If there are performance issues, please contact me and come discuss them with your coordinator and discuss them with me. The interns need to be satisfactory in all three components to continue in the program. They need to submit their CAT on time, and I'll show you what that means in a moment. Now, this one here is interesting. Some of our interns are so impressive that staff members, leaders in the organisation can get a bit ambitious in trying to snaffle that intern for their department when they finish. So we've had interns being offered roles well before the end of the program. So we ask that you and your other colleagues don't do that until at least the November before they're due to finish. So I've told the interns the 30th of November is you shouldn't be looking at accepting anything until then, and that you need to be talking to both the supervisor and the coordinator and myself before any discussions are had about completing the program early. Now, for most of our organisations, we work together. In my experience of only 1 year, all organisations want to keep their interns and employ them. So we work together for them to be able to do that. One organisation wanted their intern to move into a substantive role. So the vacancy that they had available, the intern was perfect for. It was October, and they contacted me to say, we want the intern in the role now. So we made that the intern's last rotation, and they completed all their paperwork based on their new role. So it worked really well. There are ways, but it's very important that we don't have the interns vanishing, before the end of their program. So just to keep that in mind. And that they demonstrate the values. So there we are. We've reached the end. Now I'll stop sharing and I'll ask you all if there are any questions that I can help you with. Sue, did you get your audio fixed? We can't hear you, so I'm going to have to presume not. So Sue, if you do have a question, please put it in the chat. Oh, there it is, no audio at present. So just type your question in the chat box. If you hover over the screen, you'll see a little bubble with chat, and you're welcome to type your question there. Ipa, any questions from Jenny or Laura?
Nothing from us, Steve. Thank you so much for that. That was really helpful. And I think, once we have our interns starting, we can have a better look at that spreadsheet and discuss anything. And once you sent through the link to the document you were speaking about, the manual, that'd be great to have your contact details in case we do need to get in contact at any point as well.
Great. Okay, I'll certainly get that to you by the end of the day. Now, I've just realised that I didn't show you the when things are due. Just looking for that document, which I believe is this one here. Yes, it is. All right, I'm just going to share this with you very quickly. So you will receive a copy of this as well, or access to it. Let's make it a bit bigger. Doesn't want to be bigger. Oh, it's not going to work if it's small. How can I make that bigger? Oh, look, I'll tell you what it says, okay? So here is the commencement of the placement. So it says complete the CAT score sheet and self-assessment as of the date of commencement. Submit day 1 to your supervisor and to D. Meet the supervisor within 2 weeks. Now, then we have discuss the assessment. So everything's written there very quickly, very clearly and succinctly. And then we have ensure that you've made an appointment with your supervisor so that you, before the end. So they make the appointments with you at the beginning of the rotation. So there's no question about when they're going to be wrapping the rotation up and meeting with you to complete it. It's probably a 1-hour meeting really to do the full review. So that's what I'll be asking them to schedule with you. And then if there is a mid-rotation, because they're on a long placement, there's the instructions for mid-rotation. If there isn't, at the end of the rotation, here's the list of what needs to be done. And then they move on to a new rotation. And here's the instructions, mid and end as per these two. And then at the very end of the placement, there's a couple of things that they need to be submitting, or this is for the intern. It's about their UNE results, that one, so that's not relevant to you. Now, you might ask them to send you their UNE results so you can see how they're tracking. That's up to you. We're happy for that to happen, or everything's coming to me. So if anything's not on track, I'll certainly be letting you know. So that's the document that I've been referring to, telling you when do things need to be done. You'll notice there are no dates. Now that's very intentional because all of the interns are on different lengths of rotations, so I can't pin a date. All I can say is it's due at the end of the rotation, or if it's a long rotation, there's one due in the middle as well. Okay, anything else before we finish up? All right, well, look for the with the links to the documents that you'll need to support. Eventually you'll be given the web page and everything is on the web page, but we're not quite there yet. Thank you so much for your attendance today. I really appreciate and value your contribution to the training of these interns. Very important for the industry, as I'm sure you'll agree. And it's wonderful to know that out there in the industry is a network of hundreds of ACHSM interns who are out working in the industry and contributing. So thank you all very much, and unless there's anything else, I'll finish up. Okay, thank you, goodbye.
Thank you so much. Thanks.